U.S. Attorney General William Barr is before the Senate Judiciary Committee. So far, he's faced about 4 hours of pointed questioning, especially about a controversial memo he wrote summarizing the Mueller report. In it, Barr concluded there was no criminal evidence that Donald Trump tried to obstruct justice. Democrats say the president's actions suggest otherwise.
Do you think it's okay for a president to ask his White House counsel to lie?
Well, I'm willing to talk about what's criminal.
No, but we've already acknowledged that you think it was not a crime. I'm just asking whether you think it's okay. Even if it's not a crime, do you think it's okay for the president to ask his White House counsel to lie? Look, if you're just going to go back to whether or not it's a crime, you're telling me that it's okay. Let me ask you the last question that I have in 17 seconds. Do you think it's okay for a president to offer pardons to people who don't testify against him, to threaten the family of someone who does? Is that okay?
When did he offer a pardon to someone?
I think you know what I'm talking about. Please.
What do you mean,
please, Mr. Attorney General, give us some credit for knowing what the hell is going on around here.
Last night, we learned that Robert Mueller had written a letter to Barr back in late March. In it, Mueller expressed frustration with the way Barr's memo to Congress characterized his findings. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe joins us now from Capitol Hill. Lindsay.
Andrew, the Democrats were accusing William Barr of covering up, of trying to protect the president before we even knew about that letter that was first reported by the Washington Post that came from Mueller expressing his concerns. Now that that is public, and it is not a normal or usual thing for a special counsel to write such pointed concerns in a letter to an attorney general, the kinds of questions and accusations that were leveled at Barr by the Democrats in this questioning really had that element of questioning whether this is an attorney general who is working on behalf of the president. Here is an exchange between Senator Chris Coons and William Barr.
You somehow concluded the president didn't obstruct justice, and you announced that you had cleared the president 25 days before the public could read the Mueller report for themselves. I think it's no wonder Special Counsel Mueller thought your 4-page letter created public confusion about critical aspects of the results of the investigation, and that threatened to undermine the central purpose for which he was appointed. This body has a central role in oversight that I believe we need to exercise, given your recent record.
Now, Barr spent much of the day defending himself and his decisions. On the decision to release that letter ahead of time, Barr said what he wanted to do was release the report's principal conclusions, that there were no crimes being charged as a result of the investigation. And when it came to concerns about the letter that were expressed by William Barr, those were dismissed by the Attorney General. In fact, at the end of the hearing, or the end not long ago, he said that letter itself was a bit snitty because Barr sees his job as someone who delivers the verdict, and the prosecution's case doesn't have to come out at the same time. At least that's how Barr portrayed his decisions today.
So how is Barr explaining how he came to decide there was no criminal obstruction?
Well, simply put, he says that the evidence wasn't there. And we saw a little bit of that earlier, because what happened today is that Democrats would point out the evidence that was in the report. Discussions about Don McGahn, the president's lawyer. Is that something that would be considered under obstruction of justice? And clearly, the argument that Barr put forward was that it simply wasn't enough to be able to charge the president with a crime. It was really interesting to see the difference between the Democrats' questions, which are largely focused on Barr's motivations and the obstruction issue, and how Republicans handled this hearing, Andrew, because Republicans largely focused their questions on the origins of the investigation and their belief that it was started because of bias inside the FBI. And they pointed again to text messages exchanged by different FBI agents who didn't like Donald Trump back during the election campaign. All of this isn't over yet. There is a House committee scheduled that is run by the Democrats. So if the tone was nasty today, it's going to be even nastier tomorrow. And in light of learning that Mueller himself was so concerned about the rollout of the report that he took the unusual step of writing that letter to William Barr, there is renewed pressure to have Robert Mueller himself testify in front of Congress. Now, that's something that the Attorney General says he has no problem with, but there are issues with getting it on the schedule. Democrats want to see it happen fast, Andrew.
Lindsay, thank you. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe, live in Washington.